The Environmental Management Agency is kind of the umbrella agency that has 5 different departments in it. It's got environmental health, on-site, air pollution, the Ag Commission's office, and animal services. So as soon as I'm done, I got to run off to an animal services meeting in Sacramento. But I want to cover the requirements for environmental health, on-site department, and the air pollution control district, and tried to make that as easy as possible by creating frequently asked questions. And these are on the website. So we cover the areas of solid waste and hazardous waste and hazardous materials, cannabis, organic waste, water adequacy, on-site wastewater, and air pollution. Maybe I'll look here. So again, there's a set of frequently asked questions for both of those. Some of them we've had to continue to work on to try and make it as straightforward and understandable as possible. The back side of these frequently asked questions, there's a checklist of things that we'll need in order to verify compliance with the requirements. So those are all listed there in addition. Starting with solid waste, basically garbage and rubbish needs to be kept in a watertight container with a tight-fitting lid. You just don't want to have flies and rodents and stuff getting in to the garbage, and you don't want to have piles outside and stuff like that. So you have to have good containers, and they need to be hauled to a disposal facility at least every 7 days or more often as needed. And you can self-haul, or you can use cow waste if the cow waste has access to your site. So here, turn me on here. Okay, I wanted to touch base about pesticide waste and other hazardous waste. And the key thing to note that I'm talking about here is waste, okay? These aren't the materials that you use on, these are materials that you're ready to throw away that have no further function. And hazardous wastes are regulated by environmental health. We're called the CUPA, the Certified Unified Program Agency. I won't even go into that, but there was a state law back in the end of the 1990s that consolidated a lot of departmental inspectors into one unified program agency. And so we're delegated this by the state, and we get audited every 3 years. It's just pretty brutal, but so we have to do exactly what they say. But the CUPA then handles any hazardous waste. And then there's hazardous materials, and hazardous materials are stuff you're using. So a lot of the pesticides, not so much the organic ones, but a lot of the chemical pesticides, are hazardous materials, and gasoline, diesel, and stuff like that. And so the CUPA regulates those. Now, the Ag Commission, as you know, on hazardous material of the pesticides, they have regulate the pesticide use. And so Catherine Talbot is here and is going to be able to answer any questions about that. And I don't know if you've worked with the Ag Commissioner's office, it's a great bunch of people, and they're kind of fun to work with, and they're very user-friendly. So, and then the environmental health, acting as CUPA, regulates hazardous materials from businesses that are over these threshold amounts. And the threshold amounts are 500 pounds of solid material, 55 or more gallons of liquid waste, and 200 cubic feet of or more gas. So that's what we regulate. And basically, you really don't want to be regulated by us. So you want to try to keep those quantities below that. And we're not treating cultivators any different than anybody. When we go into businesses, we do the same thing. We will actually, and all the counties do this, all the CUPAs, will work with the businesses and get those amounts down below those threshold amounts, and they don't have to be regulated because it's a big, it's a lot of hassle to be regulated. You have to turn in reports every year, get on the state computer system, et cetera. So it's best to avoid that if you can. But we're there, the staff, we've got some really good staff, and they'll work with you if you fall into that category. Okay, the organic waste, there's 3 state agencies that regulate the organic waste. They're listed here. The Bureau of Cannabis Control, the Cannabis, and the Manufactured Cannabis Safety Branch. What I did is I went to their website and pulled off information that they have on their website and put it on a sheet and put our logo on it. So there's a disclaimer on our organic waste sheet. It says, here's the website you can get the most current information on. And but as of December, the frequently asked questions we have is the information from them. And then there's the pesky issue of water adequacy. How many people are going to be using wells, if I could ask? All right, so that's a lot. So how do you have a well that meets the requirements? Okay, there's three things. Okay, one is the well, if it was put in after October 1998, there should be a permit on file for it. So we need to have that permit. The thing should have been finalized by environmental health, and then the water capacity needs to be checked. And so to final a well, you have a question?
There is a state agency that has a database that has every well that's ever been drilled in the state of California. You can get access to it, but you have to create a user ID and all that nonsense.
Yeah.
And be able to look up your GPS coordinates to your well.
Yep, and you can come in our office, and we've got the permits there. There's they have these water well reports that are filed with the Department of Water Resources, and they've got a website to get those. But basically, we're looking for our permit. And to get final, the thing has to be done and inspected, and no bacteria in it, no coliform bacteria, and nitrates less than 10 parts per million. And I don't know that we have any nitrate problem at all in this county, so that's not a real big deal, I think.
Do you have any water testing agencies or last time I
We've got a list of labs that can be used. Right.
There are labs?
There are labs, definitely. And it doesn't cost a whole lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to go into the well's capacity testing. And first thing to do is hire a qualified professional. So you don't have your buddy doing this. You have to hire a qualified professional. And there's two categories of these qualified professionals. The first one is these hydrologists and engineering geologists. And they're like the elite in the field, and they can come up with their own testing requirements and their own reporting, and they'll report and say the water's fine, okay? Or you can use the second group is pretty much everybody else, and that's like the well drillers and pump people, and that's who most people I think have been using so far on that. And so they have to use kind of our test method that we've developed and that's in the ordinance, and report on our reporting paperwork. So I just wanted to go over real quickly what that process is. It's actually not as bad as it sounds. First, the first thing you have to do, the well driller, you have to work with the well driller or the pump person, whoever you're working with, to come up with what you think is going to be the average water use during the months of July through September. So you come up with that amount, and by, just as a reference, the literature indicates kind of a range here that I've shown here. But I don't think people are going to be second guessing you. That's up to you and the well driller to figure out how much water you're going to be using. And then what you do is you leave the well for 8 hours without using it, and that establishes the static water level. There's 3 water level tests. The first one is at the highest level, basically, of the water level would be in the well. So that you do the static water test. Then you pump it, and you pump that well, and you can pump that 1 day's capacity, and that day's capacity can be pumped in 1 hour, it can be pumped in 2 hours, but it's got to be 24 hours or less. So the pump people, because when you throttle down a pump, it's kind of hard on the pump, they like to pump rapidly. So theoretically, you could have them pump the well at a rapid rate, and the well with the water would suck down below the pump, and the pump would have its automatic shut off. There's a low, and then they would pump again at a lower rate. This could go on. However the pumper does it, it doesn't matter. That's up to the expert doing it. But you get that 24 hours of water use, and then you check it again. That's the lower level. And then 24 hours later, you check it the third time and see where it's recovered to. And that's really all there is to it. So just to kind of demonstrate, here's the static level, you know, after 8 hours of non-use. Here's after you've done your 1 day of pumping, 1 day's water use pumping, and then this is where the recovery is after 24 hours. So far what we've seen is that level has come up to the original static water. There hasn't been a difference. But if it is less, it's got to be down no more than 10%. So you have to have this 90% recovery back up to that static level from the maximum drawdown level. So there's really a simple formula that you can use. Just using those 3 readings, you use that formula, and it'll give you the percent of loss, and it should be less than 10%. And I've talked to the well drillers, and they said that they think that most of the new wells will pass this, and some of the older wells might have some problems. Might have to be deepened or something like that. So that's what I get from the well drillers that have done this. And then we have our own handy-dandy form here to fill it out. All those numbers match. So what numbers that are in frequently asked questions match what I just showed you and match what's in the form there. To just make it as simple as possible. So, on-site wastewater. When do you need a septic system for a site? Basically, you need it if you have a structure there that's got plumbing, or if you're generating wastewater. We don't want gray water. We don't want sink waste, kitchen waste, shower waste running down the ground or being channeled into a pit. If you're going to have this gray water, basically, you got to have a septic system. So that's the thing. Now the question is, if it has it, what's going to be required? Okay. Again, we look for the permit and see it's finalized, and you get this on-site wastewater treatment system inspector that would evaluate some. These are the same guys that look at systems when you buy a piece of property, you know, on the realtor gets somebody to check out the system, and they pump the tank and they put some water through it and sign it off. That's the people that would do that. And then this important thing is that if you've got a residence there and you're living in the residence, you're good to go. If you've got workers that are not part of that, they need to have a portable toilet. And the ratio is 1 per 20. So between 1 and 20 people, you'd have to have at least 1 portable toilet with hand washing. And then it would go at that rate. And that's the same rate that we get from Cal OSHA. When you drive along the road and you see these orchards and see the portable toilets, that's the ratio that they use.
Is there any way we can turn the mic up and say we can't hear you in the other room?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's my fault. Okay. So that's that. Let's see. Okay, there's that definition for an OTS inspector, and I've actually included the PowerPoint. That's a list of our current OTS inspectors. So if you pick up a copy of the presentation here, I made a billion of them. It's listed on that. Now, what if you need a new septic system? A new septic system, it starts, with the application. You come into the Environmental Health's office. That's where the on-site department is. First thing that happens is a soil profile, because the soil tells you what kind of system you need. The worse the soil, the more you need a fancy system, right? One of those expensive ones. So you start out with your soil profile. And then, get back there. Okay, if the soil's real good, and as you go up in the foothills, the soil gets better and better as a rule. So we've got standard gravity systems, which are perfect kind of system up in the higher elevations as you go up the hill. So then you just need to get a septic contractor. They wouldn't have to do a design. The septic contractor digs this open trench. We inspect that. And then we do a final inspection when everything is covered. And as simple as that. If you've got poor soil conditions that need to be compensated by supplemental treatment or pressure distribution, then that's where you get the qualified professional to design that system ahead of time. So,
Brad, could you talk into the mic? We are recording this.
I've really screwed up on this, haven't I? Okay. Inspection. I think that's all I was going to say there. Oh, yeah. Again, terminology, it's in here. This is who a qualified professional is. An engineered system is basically it's a supplemental treatment system that treats the sewage a little bit before it's discharged, and it's often discharged with pressure distribution. And again, here's a list of local qualified professionals. So these are the ones in our area that do this. Then we get to air, and I don't know about you, but I didn't understand much about anything when we started this process about these carbon offsets. Have you guys kind of got some information on that? Is there any? Basically, what happens is this: if you're going to have some big project, let's say doing a big building or something, and you cut down on, and you put in solar and you do these different things, and you cut down on your carbon footprint, then what you can do is you document that, and then you go to a state certified verifier who verifies that, and then you can sell those, and you can either sell them directly to people or you can sell them indirectly through a broker like a realtor. And you know how a realtor handles other people's property. That's what these brokers do, and that's probably the easiest way to do that that we found. And the state has this system. It's pretty complicated. It's not really. It doesn't seem like it's designed for cultivation, but nonetheless, that's what's in the ordinance. So to determine how much of carbon offsets you need, it's pretty simple. You take if it's an outdoor or mixed light grow, you just take the square feet of the canopy times 17.2 divided by 22,000. And if it's an indoor grow, you take this square feet of the canopy times 11.3 divided by 22,000, and you get, voila, metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent offsets that must be purchased. That's the fancy terminology for it. So I included that here because if you deal with this, it might be helpful to know exactly what you're asking for. Now, there's different ways to pay for these and to make this transaction happen. And so I've got some illustrations. Here's 3 different ones that I know would deal with cultivators. They each do it in a slightly different way. One of the easiest ways is that Terra. Find myself here. That TerraPass is pretty cool. You get on their website, you scroll down to purchase offsets, you put in your name stuff, you give your charge card number or whatever, and you can print your own certificate. I mean, it's pretty straightforward on that one. The second one there, you have to call them, and the third one, you do an online thing and they give you a bid. And if you want to find out more of these, there's some web links at the bottom there that will have listing of these brokers. But I found there's no one website that has all the brokers. It's very kind of a disorganized sort of system from what I could tell. But anyway, that's the easiest way to do it. Then there's an issue. Well, okay, can I put in solar pump for my well and stuff and reduce the number of, yes ma'am? Oh, and reduce the number of offsets. You can, the ordinance allows it. From what we can tell, it's probably prohibitively expensive and complicated to do that, but you're welcome to try. You'd have to use one of these verifiers, probably find the verifier and have them do the report. We haven't done that. It will be a learning experience for everybody if you want to do that. Our initial indication is it's quite a bit of a hassle and cost, but if you're interested in doing that, come in the office. It's the same office, air pollution is in. We've got this brilliant guy, Doug Carson, that works with us, and he's very good to work with, and he would sit down and go over that with you. And then emergency generators, we're about done here. Emergency generators, oops. Okay, you need, you fall under the air district's regulation if you have a diesel generator that is greater than 50 braking horsepower. Then you need to get authority to construct and permit to operate. If it's propane, you don't. If it's gasoline, you don't. If it's diesel, you do. That's the way the law is structured. So then, so we have one other tool, and that's this one here. This is our checklist. This checklist It's 4 pages, and it should be everything we believe at this point, and errors could be made. We believe this is everything that we need in the Environmental Management Agency for those 3 departments, environmental health, on-site, and air, that we need to sign off on that permit. And I just wanted to show you a couple of features of this. There's the blue headings here are the different areas of concern we have. I put in these pink boxes that specific documentation that we need to look at to verify compliance, and then there's a signature at the bottom. And so hopefully this is going to make it easy for people to kind of navigate through these requirements. And finally, we want to have all this on the web. Frequently asked questions are all on the web. Well, how do you find them on the web, right? So I've got a simple way to do this here. This is the Cannabis website, right? And at the top, there's a little drop-down menu called Ordinances. And if you click on that, you've got this regulatory ordinances and regulatory compliance. You click on regulatory compliance, and it opens up a page. You scroll down to the bottom of the page, and voila, there they are. And that's where we'll put the PowerPoint presentation there too. So all that'll be there. We've got hard copies here. And that's about it. Any questions? Bill?
Okay. Completely outdoor grow generates carbon, CO2? No, the plants eat CO2 7 times faster than a tree does.
Okay, now this is interesting. On the carbon thing, I think the initial one is for the construction, the grading or whatever. This consultant works for the county, did all this stuff. I mean, he's got pages and pages. I can't explain it, but I can tell you there's an initial one, and then there's this ongoing one, this one that has to be done every year. And the rationale for that is kind of eludes me a little bit too. But
okay.
I thought the same thing. I mean, they should be absorbing it. Yeah.
It shits oxygen, basically, right? You know, I'm sorry, but...
I'm with you on that, but yeah.
And it eats CO2, and they want you to pay for it.
You can go through that whole process. It's much more costly than just spending a couple $100.
Anyway, yeah, Matt.
So you mentioned about the solar water, you know, putting solar on a well.
Yeah.
Is there other ways that you can offset carbon? I mean, besides buying the carbon credits, but
Brad, would you repeat the question so that it's
Okay.
on the video?
The question was, can we list the ways that carbon can be reduced besides solar for the wells and stuff? And I've seen some other listing. I don't recall any master list. If you would, I have seen some other things, and they don't come to the top of my head, but I can get back with you on that if I get contact information. And that question, you give that to Ethan or Ben or something, and I'll follow up on that. And I can do a little more research and talk to some state people on that. I don't know if the water board, it's not really their focus, I guess.
I think that'd be really interesting in the fire zone if we're able to offset it by planting, by reforesting, because that could give us a reason or a way to offset the cost of reforesting if it's not going to benefit our carbon offset.
That's a pretty darn good idea. Could you add that to your question? She's going to write the question. We'll add that, and I'll look into that too. I mean, that sure makes sense to me. Ma'am?
I have a question regarding existing septic systems
Yeah.
on residential houses. Are they going to be re-inspected?
They're going to be they're going to be inspected like just if you buy a piece of property, you know, you buy a house and you hire the realtor usually arranges, we get the OTS inspector and they do this inspection, just make sure it's functioning right.
Why?
Well, because we want a functioning septic system there.
Why does it have to be re-inspected if it's a structure that's been there?
Well, if you talk to these inspectors, they can just give you a list of stuff that roots that have grown.
I understand why it needs to be re-inspected.
Oh.
However, I don't understand. I don't see on here, as long as it's not being used for the site, why it would need to be re-inspected if it's just on the
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yes, it is. I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm reading this, I don't see where it is not being used for the workers during those 12 hours.
Why would you have to get it done?
Why would it be reinspected?
Now, if it's a residence you already own
And have been living in.
and you've been living in, would you write that down and we'll look at that question? That's really a good question.
Thank you. But where should I send it?
Send it to Ben or Ethan, they'll get it to me, and I promise to follow up on that specifically with you, and if we need to change any policies like that, we will, okay? Because what we really want to do is be as fair as possible with everybody.
Yeah, because without this, I wouldn't be re-inspecting it.
Yeah, I see, yeah,
I got it.
okay.
Just pumping in your permitted septic and having that gentleman say his tank's okay, the outlet good, is that acceptable?
Yeah, that's
You don't
it.
have to hire an actual engineer to come out and...
No, it's usually, yeah, I've got the list there. The two biggest one are Sweet Pea and the other,
We've talked about it.
yeah. And it's a good thing to do. It's a good thing to have it checked out periodically anyway, but I'll follow up on that.
That should fall under a county ordinance then, rather than specific to cannabis.
Yeah, let me check on that. Anything else? All right. If you have any follow-up questions later, they will get them to me, okay? So, and I will follow up. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your attention.
Yeah. Thanks, Brad.